My name is Rachel Kim, and the aggressive cop tased me while I was trying to help a car accident victim on the side of Highway 95 near Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I wasn't interfering with emergency services. I wasn't refusing commands. I was performing CPR on a dying woman while waiting for an ambulance that was taking too long. And Officer Derek Vaughn decided that a civilian rendering aid was somehow a threat worth 50,000 volts. The accident had happened maybe 3 minutes before I arrived. SUV rolled over, driver ejected through the windshield, lying motionless on the shoulder. I was driving home from the base in civilian clothes, yoga pants, Air Force Academy hoodie, hair in a ponytail when I saw the wreckage and pulled over immediately. No other cars had stopped yet. Just me, the wreck, and a woman who wasn't breathing. I'd run combat search and rescue training. I'd pulled injured pilots from crashed aircraft. I knew CPR, trauma response, emergency medicine. I checked for pulse. None. Started compressions immediately, counting in my head, focused entirely on keeping blood flowing to her brain until professional help arrived. That's when Officer Vaughn pulled up, lights flashing. I heard his car door, his boots on gravel, but I didn't stop compressions. Couldn't. Stopping meant she died. Step away from her. His voice was sharp, authoritative, designed to compel immediate obedience. She's not breathing. I'm doing CPR. Ambulance is coming. I kept compressions going, steady rhythm, exactly as trained. I said, step away, now. She'll die if I stop. He grabbed my shoulder, tried to pull me off her. I shrugged him off without breaking rhythm, my training overriding everything else. The woman under my hands was dying. Nothing else mattered. You're interfering with a crime scene. This isn't a crime scene. It's an accident. She needs CPR. Still compressing, still counting, still trying to keep her alive. Last warning, step back or you'll be detained. I felt her pulse flutter under my fingers. Weak, but there. The CPR was working. Just needed 30 more seconds, maybe a minute, until paramedics arrived. I could hear sirens in the distance. Vaughn didn't give me 30 seconds. He grabbed both my shoulders, physically hauled me off the victim, threw me backward onto the highway shoulder. I hit gravel hard, palms scraping, but I immediately tried to get back to her. She's going to die. Stay down. He pulled out his taser, pointed it directly at my chest. Do not move. She needs CPR. There's a pulse. I can save her. I started to stand anyway. Started to move back toward the woman whose pulse I just felt, whose life was measured in seconds without chest compressions. Vaughn didn't hesitate. The taser hit me center mass, 50,000 volts. Every muscle in my body seized simultaneously, locked rigid in agonizing contraction. I went down like a puppet with cut strings, face hitting gravel, unable to control anything, my body betraying me while electricity coursed through my nervous system. 5 seconds felt like 50. When the current stopped, I couldn't move, could barely breathe. Lay there twitching while Vaughn stood over me, taser still pointed, while the woman I'd been saving lay 10 feet away without anyone helping her. Stay down or I'll tase you again. I tried to speak. Couldn't. My jaw wouldn't work right. Words coming out as gasps. She needs help. She'll get help from professionals. You're under arrest for interfering with emergency services. The ambulance finally arrived, 20 seconds too late. The paramedics rushed to the woman, started their own CPR, worked frantically. I watched from the ground, still twitching from the taser, as they tried to save a life I'd been keeping viable until Vaughn decided my help was interference worth electrocuting. They worked on her for 6 minutes, called it at 9:47 p.m., time of death. The woman whose pulse I'd felt, whose chest had been rising with my compressions, died while I was convulsing on the ground. Vaughn handcuffed me while I was still too weak to resist, hauled me to my feet, walked me past the covered body, past the paramedics who avoided eye contact, past other cops who'd arrived and were documenting the scene, shoved me into his patrol car, and left me there while he gave his report. Through the window, I watched the paramedics talk to a senior officer, watched them gesture at the body, at the timeline, at where I'd been. Watched the senior officer's expression change from neutral to concerned. Watched him walk toward Vaughn. Their conversation was too far away to hear, but body language told the story. The senior officer gesturing sharply, Vaughn defensive, hands moving in justification. The senior officer shaking his head, looking at me in the patrol car, then back at Vaughn with obvious anger. Vaughn approached the car, opened the back door. "You're being released. No charges." "What about?" "No charges." His voice was flat, offering no explanation. He unlocked the handcuffs, stepped back, avoided eye contact. I got out slowly, my muscles still spasming from the taser. The senior officer approached, sergeant's stripes visible. "Ma'am, I apologize for the confusion. You're free to go." Confusion? He tased me while I was performing CPR. "Officer Vaughn believed you were interfering. I was saving her life. She had a pulse. I felt it. And now she's dead because he pulled me away." The sergeant's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, this incident will be reviewed. If you want to file a complaint, I want to file more than a complaint. That woman died because your officer decided helping was a crime." I pulled out my phone, surprised Vaughn hadn't confiscated it. "I want your name, his badge number, and the incident report number." He provided them. I documented everything with photos. The taser marks on my chest visible through my torn hoodie, the scrapes on my palms and face, the scene, the covered body. The sergeant watched without interfering. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Rachel Kim, and you were performing CPR when Officer Vaughn arrived." "Yes. I'm trained in emergency medicine. I found her without a pulse, started compressions, got her heart beating again. Then your officer pulled me off and tased me." "Are you medical personnel?" "I'm military, combat search and rescue training." His expression shifted slightly. "You're stationed at Nellis?" "Yes. What do you do there?" "I'm a pilot." "Rank?" I pulled out my wallet, showed him my military ID, let him read it, watched his face go from concerned to horrified. "Major Rachel Kim, United States Air Force, F-35 pilot, 13 years of service, combat deployments to Syria and Afghanistan, stationed at Nellis Air Force Base as an instructor at the Fighter Weapons School, the Air Force's equivalent of Top Gun." "Oh, Christ." The sergeant looked at Vaughn, who'd gone pale. "Officer Vaughn, get in your vehicle. Now. Don't talk to anyone." He turned back to me. "Ma'am, I need you to come to the station to give a full statement. I need to contact my command first." "Of course. Absolutely." He was already pulling out his phone, already making calls, already understanding that this had gone from a bad stop to an interagency disaster. I called Nellis, got the duty officer, explained the situation in clinical terms. "Sir, I need to report an incident. I was tased by Las Vegas Metro PD while rendering emergency medical aid. The victim died. I need JAG and public affairs." The duty officer's voice went from routine to sharp in seconds. "Say that again, ma'am." I repeated it, heard him start making calls on another line while keeping me on hold. 30 seconds later, a new voice. Colonel Stephen Martinez, my squadron commander. "Major Kim, are you injured?" "Taser burns, some abrasions, nothing serious." "Where are you?" "Highway 95, mile marker 42, with Las Vegas Metro. They're asking me to come to the station for a statement." "Don't go anywhere. I'm 10 minutes out with JAG. Don't answer any questions until we arrive." The sergeant overheard. "Sir, we just need... You just tased an Air Force major while she was performing CPR. You're not getting anything until military legal counsel is present." Colonel Martinez arrived with Captain Hayes from JAG, a public affairs officer, and 2 Air Force Office of Special Investigations agents. The highway shoulder became a jurisdictional standoff. Las Vegas Metro on one side, Air Force on the other, with me in the middle, and a dead body covered by a sheet. The paramedics gave their statement first, confirmed I'd been performing CPR when they arrived, confirmed the victim had a pulse when Vaughn pulled me away, confirmed that pulse was lost during the altercation and never recovered. Their report would state, civilian was performing effective CPR. Victim had return of spontaneous circulation. Civilian was removed from patient by police officer. Patient arrested shortly after. Resuscitation unsuccessful. Captain Hayes recorded everything, then turned to Vaughn. Officer, did you identify yourself before using the taser? She was interfering with a crime scene. It was an accident scene. Did you identify yourself? I gave her multiple warnings. Did you assess whether her actions were helping or harming the victim? She wasn't qualified. How do you know? Did you ask her qualifications before tasing her? Major Kim is a combat search and rescue trained F-35 pilot with 13 years of military service. She saved lives in combat zones. She was performing CPR correctly, according to the paramedics. And you tased her, causing a victim with return of spontaneous circulation to lose that pulse and die. Is that accurate? The highway went silent. The sergeant spoke up. This incident is under review. This incident is being investigated by Air Force OSI, the Department of Defense Inspector General, and will likely involve the FBI. Colonel Martinez's voice was ice. Officer Vaughn tased a field-grade military officer while she was rendering life-saving aid. There's a dead civilian who might be alive if he'd shown any judgment. This isn't a review. This is a criminal investigation. The news broke within hours. Air Force Major tased while performing CPR. Victim dies. The security camera footage from a nearby gas station showed everything. Me performing chest compressions, Vaughn pulling me away, the taser deployment, me convulsing on the ground while the woman died. The public reaction was immediate and furious. Veterans groups demanded accountability. Emergency medical organizations called it unconscionable. The victim's family, once they learned I'd gotten her heart beating again, only to have a cop stop me, threatened lawsuits. The Air Force released a statement. Major Rachel Kim is a decorated combat pilot who was rendering emergency medical aid when she was unlawfully detained and assaulted by local law enforcement. The incident is under investigation, and we expect full accountability. Vaughn tried to defend himself in interviews. Claimed he thought I was interfering, that he couldn't tell I was helping, that he acted on his training. The paramedics destroyed his defense. Testified that my CPR was textbook perfect, that the victim's return of spontaneous circulation was directly attributable to my efforts, that removing me was the proximate cause of death. The medical examiner's report was devastating. Cause of death, cardiac arrest secondary to traumatic injury. Contributing factor, interruption of effective CPR during critical window of viability. Vaughn was charged with involuntary manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon, and deprivation of rights under color of law. His trial took 8 months. I testified in my dress blues, my ribbons telling the story of 13 years, including 2 combat deployments. Described finding the victim, performing CPR, feeling her pulse return. Described Vaughn pulling me away, tasing me, leaving her to die. Did you identify yourself as military? The prosecutor asked. I tried. I was focused on keeping her alive. When he grabbed me, I told him she needed CPR. That was more important than my rank. In your professional opinion, would she have survived if CPR had continued? The paramedics arrived 45 seconds after I was tased. If I'd continued compressions for 45 more seconds, she would have had spontaneous circulation when they took over. Based on the paramedic testimony and medical examiner report, yes, she likely would have survived. The courtroom was silent. Vaughn's defense tried to argue he couldn't have known I was qualified. The prosecutor showed my training records: combat search and rescue, advanced trauma life support, multiple certifications that exceeded basic EMT level. Even if Officer Vaughn didn't know her qualifications, He could see she was performing effective CPR. The victim was alive. Her heart was beating. And he stopped that because, why? Because she didn't immediately obey? Because saving a life was less important than his authority? The jury convicted him on all charges. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in prison, citing the unconscionable use of force against someone rendering aid, and the preventable death that resulted from valuing authority over human life. But the real justice came from policy changes. Las Vegas Metro revised their use of force policies. Nevada passed a Good Samaritan Protection Act, specifically protecting people rendering emergency medical aid from police interference. The law was named after the victim, Sarah Chen, who died because an aggressive cop valued compliance over compassion. I went back to Nellis, back to teaching fighter pilots, back to the job I trained 13 years to do. But I kept the torn hoodie, kept the medical examiner's report, kept the security footage of me performing CPR, not as trophies, as evidence. Evidence that badges don't override basic humanity, that authority without judgment kills, that sometimes the person you tase for interfering is actually the only one trying to save a life. My name is Major Rachel Kim. I'm in the United States Air Force with 13 years of service, and I learned that aggressive cops make calculations. Calculations about who's worth listening to, who deserves the benefit of doubt, who can be tased without consequences. Officer Vaughn calculated wrong. He saw someone in civilian clothes performing CPR and decided that was interference worth 50,000 volts. He learned I was an Air Force major 3 hours later when my squadron commander showed up with lawyers and investigators. By then, Sarah Chen was dead. His career was over. His freedom was ending. All because he valued his authority over a woman's life. All because he couldn't pause long enough to assess whether the person he was about to tase was helping or harming. All because compliance mattered more than a beating heart. The taser burns healed. The muscle spasms stopped. But Sarah Chen is still dead because an aggressive cop thought saving lives was a crime worth electrocuting someone to stop. Vaughn's got 12 years to think about that calculation. And Sarah's law ensures that no other Good Samaritan gets tased for trying to help. Sometimes the person you tase while they're performing CPR turns out to be a combat pilot who ends your career and changes state law. Vaughn learned that too late, but every cop in Nevada knows it now, because I survived the taser. Sarah didn't survive his aggression, and that difference cost him everything.